Once the invasion of Ukraine got underway, countries with developed economies began cutting back on their relations with Russia. The obvious goal here was to make the war less attractive to Moscow. Higher costs of war mean less war, right? But today I want to explain how this can lead to an unappreciated side effect. Under some conditions, sanctions make negotiating a settlement more difficult. Let's go back to the basics of crisis bargaining. Imagine that this white line represents the expected territorial division of a fully completed war. Everything to the west remains Ukraine, everything to the east becomes part of Russia's dominion. War is expensive, and we can use this red line to represent Russia's costs. The space between the white and red lines reflects how Russia internalizes the loss of life and property in terms of square kilometers. We can do the same thing for Ukraine using this yellow line. Here, the space between the white and yellow lines reflects how Ukraine internalizes its costs. The space in between the red and yellow lines therefore represents the set of settlements that leave both parties better off than if they continued to fight. In a previous video, we discussed how sanctions create an additional opportunity cost for war. What that looks like here for Russia is shifting that red line further to the east. This makes the set of mutually preferable settlements larger and would seem to make peace more likely. The problem with this thinking is that we haven't yet explained why a settlement failed to arise in the first place. One issue here seems to be how much Putin cares about the issues at stake. Calculating the trade-off between the loss of life and the value of enhanced autonomy for the eastern breakaway regions is something done internally. It's hard for an outside intelligence agency to know exactly how a foreign leader feels about the situation. We can represent that uncertainty on the map. One possibility is that Putin has high resolve, so he internalizes the costs of war at a low rate. Another possibility is that he has lower resolve, and thus he internalizes the costs of war at a greater rate. This creates a dilemma for Ukraine. If they suspect Putin likely has high resolve, then they should play it safe and make a greater concession to avoid a longer war. But if they suspect Putin likely has low resolve, then they should risk war by making a greater demand. It might backfire, but it is worth it in expectation. One subtle determinant of which proposal is better is the difference between the costs of the two types. We call this the peace premium. It's how much you must overpay the low resolve type to induce the high resolve type to accept. When the premium is small, safe demands are smarter. It's not worth risking war against the high resolve type just to keep a little bit of extra land. But when the peace premium grows larger, risky demands become more attractive. Guaranteeing the peace makes a large, unnecessary concession too much of the time to be worth it. So Ukraine goes aggressive. And that leads to war if Ukraine guessed wrong. It turns out that sanctions manipulate the peace premium in a surprising way. I have a video with the mathematical details, but I'll just explain the intuition here. Imagine that Putin has high resolve. Sanctions, of course, increase his cost of war. However, if Putin places great value on the prize, then he will internalize those additional costs at a lower rate. The result is that the line shifts east, but not by much. Now imagine that Putin has low resolve. Sanctions again increase the cost of war. This time, though, the effect is greater. That's because he cares less about the good, so the lost value of sanctions represents a bigger disutility. As such, sanctions cause the peace premium to expand. That, in turn, makes the risky demand look relatively more attractive, and thus increasing the effective cost of war can actually make continued war more likely. This is okay for both Ukraine and countries like the United States because the greater expected extraction more than compensates for the additional risk of war. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.